Well, I was messaging you and talking to you, and you didn't reply, so we had to get your attention.
Yeah, I saw your message, but I could not get it for the life of me to allow me to actually reply back to you.
Oh, wow. Well, better drop out, come back in then.
That's
Good
what
to
I
have
did.
you. So go ahead and introduce yourself, since you've been the topic of conversation for 5 minutes. What's your...
You're like, who is this guy that won't reply?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Robert Jackson. I'm from Washington Lodge, number 17 in Hamilton, Ohio.
Awesome. Good to have you here, brother.
Thank you.
Sorry for the technical difficulties for you there. Nice to have you here. Brother Tripp, would you like to show yourself? I saw you pop in, so can you at least say hello? I saw his face briefly. More people. Cool.
Well, he's probably at Fredericksburg Lodge right now. He's the man. Oh, there he is. Nope. Hold on.
Oh.
Where'd he go?
Who's that?
Yeah, he's
Chris
probably
Tripp?
at he's at Fredericksburg Lodge. He's the master over there.
Oh, excellent.
So.
Okay. And Clayton's
He's probably running around doing some errand.
Right. Brother Gray, hello. I think you've been here before. You look familiar. You're muted, sir. You're on mute. By the way, when it says ask to unmute, do y'all know do you get like a message pop up or?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, Edward.
Click on.
Good afternoon.
Nice to have you here, sir. I think you were here last week, weren't you?
No, I wasn't. No.
Oh, okay. Well, then welcome. All right. You look familiar. All right.
Okay, thanks.
Everyone's a friend here. Welcome. Nice to have you. I saw Brother Clayton finally got in. Nice to have you here, brother. He's still connected. All right. And Brother Birkin, nice to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here. So, as always, we never know how many people to expect, Shelby, so hopefully we'll have a good crowd. You've been here enough times. You know, if we get more than 10, that's generally good, but we get up to 20 or 30 sometimes. I'm always happy. The more, the merrier. But,
It is Easter weekend, so
yes.
I didn't expect much.
Yes.
So we could have all Muslims then.
Yes. All of my Jewish and Muslim brothers report. And I've always said, in all honesty, every 7-Eleven should make sure that they hire enough non-Christian people here in the States so that when it's Christmas or Easter or any major Christian holiday, the Jews and the Muslims can work that day and it's no big deal. And you can even pay them, vacation, double time or whatever. And then the Christians can work the Muslim and Jewish holidays because we don't know what they are and no big deal. That way a business can be open every single day.
That's roughly what happens over here.
Yeah, because what's the point? I mean, honestly, if I was working on a Muslim holiday, I wouldn't even know or care. I'm working anyway. It's just another day to me. So that it would make sense because there are people on Christmas Day who need to run out and buy things. And people have nothing to be thankful for can work on Thanksgiving Day. Whatever it takes.
It's got to be said, the Muslim holiday I like taking part in. It's absolutely brilliant.
Oh, really?
Great fun. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Plenty of food, plenty of laughs, but no booze. But you can't have everything.
Oh, well. I did want to announce for everyone, and I think most everybody here is a regular, but most of y'all, welcome to Virginia Research Lodge 1777's weekly unstated meeting. And I did want to announce a big deal because the governor has loosened his grip slightly, and we are allowed up to 50 people inside for meetings. The Grand Master has followed suit, as he has all along, and lodges are now allowed to meet and have up to 50 people. So Virginia Research Lodge will have our May stated on Saturday, May 15th at 10 a.m. So we will not be having any broadcast that day. And I'm actually looking forward to going to my lodge in person, and anyone who's close enough to attend, we'd love to have you there. There's details on the Facebook page about it, but I'm really stoked. And it's going to be the district deputy's official visit. You've seen Mark Hone on here. I think those of you who've been here regularly, Mark makes an effort to attend some of our meetings. He's our research district deputy, and so he'll be making his official visit. So that should be a lot of fun. And we have a great speaker talking about Masonic music. It'd be pretty cool. So I'm very happy that we're finally meeting again. Let's see. Brother Gordon is here. He was here last week. Those of you who missed it, we had a really good talk with our Scottish brothers on Scottish Masonry. It was a lot of fun. I had more people on the panel than in the audience. So it's like a lot of lodge meetings, right? Good to have Brother Gordon here. He was one of our attendees and it was a lot of fun. We all learned a lot about Scottish Masonry. It was pretty cool. Morning, Brother Aday. Nice to have you here.
Good morning. Nice to be here. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm good. I'm good.
Great.
It's warming up out here. It's been cold, but it's warming up finally. I don't know. We're in April and it was freezing cold and it was 80 degrees and then it was freezing cold. It's just
Yeah, no kidding.
Come on, can we pick a lane, Virginia? I don't know. We actually had the heat on one day and an air conditioning on the other. It's crazy. Yeah, let's see. I wanted to make sure I said hello to everybody. I said hi to Brother Birkin. I don't know that he replied back. I see here, Brother Birkin.
He did. He just missed me.
Oh, all right.
No worries.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you. No worries.
All right. And Brother Dreyfus, nice to have you here, sir. In the blue room. I like that he wears a shirt that makes him just blend into the background. He can.
Well, in the spirit of the resistance, I'm trying to just disappear while being here.
I see. So he's just.
I just came up with that. I think it's pretty darn
pretty good.
Myself.
It's suburban camouflage. He just blends in.
Yeah. I could cover myself with like grass, and it would be even better. But
there you go.
Yeah, give me another about 4 weeks when the grass is a little taller, and yeah, I can do that.
I was watching. I don't know if any of you are familiar with. There's a show called Futurama. It's a cartoon. Been around a while. Most people heard of it. It's the guy who made The Simpsons did this, but I like the show. Hermes is the government bureaucrat, and somebody makes a crack about. I bet just another faceless bureaucrat blended into the background, and it shows Hermes, and he's wearing like a brown suit, and the walls are brown, so it's like he's totally blended in, exact same color. And you see his face, and he says, "I resent that."
I've been there, man.
That's where you are. The Iris is blended right in. Are you in like an attic or something, or is that upstairs?
Well, it's kind of like that. It's an upstairs bedroom over the garage, and the good thing about it is it's away from the rest of the house. So my wife, who's a actual college professor right now and does gainful work, I'm employed. I live off of her, thank God. And so she's got the main like office downstairs. And rather than have a fight every time we want to do something, I sort of took over this thing. It's, it used to be a bedroom.
Yep. Yeah, I see all the nice 45-degree angles are close to, I guess.
Yeah.
Pretty neat look behind you there.
Yeah, I'll take full credit for it, but I had nothing to do with it. So what's that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, then. Let's see. Well, we got about 14 people. As I mentioned, we will be meeting in person, so anyone who's in the area who wants to come visit Virginia Research Lodge on the 15th, you're more than welcome. So hopefully that trend will continue and we'll be able to have the rest of our year. I've stayed on as junior deacon. The master and everyone, all the officers the master decided, we all agreed, we're just going to stay in another year since we didn't get to have an annual or a February meeting. And it wouldn't be fair to the senior warden to let him be master for all of like 2 or 3 meetings. So it's going to actually sync up where we met in February and we didn't meet in May in 2020. And now we're going to actually meet in May. So everyone will get a full year of meetings in their current office. So it works out okay. I'm just disappointed because I hadn't given a talk in my lodge, in the research lodge, since around the time I joined. I gave a talk when I first joined back in the 90s. And I was really looking forward to giving a talk. And Dennis had asked me a year earlier to have a paper. And we ended up making it our first unstated meeting. So I got to give the talk online, but I really had hoped to give the paper in the lodge room. But anyway, I'm glad that we're going to be getting back on track.
Where are you physically, by the way? Where will the lodge? I don't know where the lodge physically meets.
I'm in Virginia Beach. The lodge meets in Highland Springs. Are you familiar with? It's in Richmond. You familiar where the Grand Lodge of Virginia is?
Okay, yeah.
And the Masonic home.
Yeah, sure.
We're on the same road. If you leave our lodge and keep driving west about 3 miles, you go right past the Masonic home and the Grand Lodge offices.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, I know exactly where you're at.
If you know Richmond, with the exit we're off of it mentions the Richmond Airport, which I think is a local airport.
Yeah.
We're off of that exit. So
Yeah.
it's Highland Springs. I consider it Richmond, but it's a separate town. So
Okay.
just outside, kind of the eastern suburbs of Richmond, I guess.
Yeah. My daughter lives down there, so I'm sort of familiar with it.
Okay. Yeah, but you're more because you're in Northern Virginia, right?
Yeah, yes. Oh, no, I can't say that because I'm in Northern Virginia.
I see. So you have to say something else. I don't even know. Yes.
Yep.
You're part of the greater DC megalopolis.
That's the one.
Yes.
But I also want to point out that slowly but surely the tentacles are reaching down toward Highland Park in Richmond.
I'm sure. I did see a very interesting map that I was in favor of where West Virginia would annex all of the southern part of Virginia and then pick up most of Hampton Roads. And we're going to call it West Virginia Beach. And basically live Northern Virginia themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
because most Virginians consider Northern Virginia occupied territory anyways.
I know.
And growing.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Got to beat it back.
Yeah.
But food for thought here.
Well, that would explain the West Virginia Navy, which does exist.
Yes. Well, you can thank Robert Byrd for everything that's in West Virginia that should be in DC.
It is the
Very
state
good at
bird.
moving stuff, to his home state. So there are federal entities in West Virginia.
Well, to get to West Virginia, you have to travel the Robert Byrd Highway, go by the Robert Byrd High School and the Robert Byrd Elementary School and the Robert Byrd Courthouse, and
He was good at
buy chicken at the Robert Byrd Birdhouse. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. But so it's just food for thought. I've been working from home for the last 2 years, and working remotely, you realize that you can live anywhere. I mean, I could go live next door to Brian if I wanted and continue to work my same job, and it wouldn't matter.
Not anything to do with it.
Huh? Well, no, I know. I was just trying to give an extreme example of being out in the middle of nowhere, But I don't know. I mean, for all I know, you live in downtown London. I have no idea. But
middle of nowhere, mate.
Okay, well, good. But that's the thing is you could live virtually anywhere and work remotely. And I really hope, as a positive thing from COVID, companies that for years have said, we can't let people work remote are forced to. They open. And now they don't have the excuse of, well, we can't trust you to work from home. Well, I've been doing it for the last 2 years. Give me a good reason why I need to come back in the office if I can do it from here. So I think it's going to change the dynamic of working. And if most people can stay home, most of us who have office type jobs can work from home, that frees up all the roads. It cuts down all the traffic. People are not commuting to and fro, and they can do their work and they can save on dry cleaning bills and all that. I mean, some industries will suffer, but I guess the dry cleaning industry will maybe take a hit, and the automotive industry maybe a little. But really, less people driving, so people are only driving if they have to. And all the people in DC, for God's sakes, if you're spending 4 hours a day commuting, you can stay right where you are.
It is an enormous difference between the way it used to be, where you could walk on the top of the cars and it would be faster.
Yes.
Now we have roads, you can actually see asphalt.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I'm just thinking long term if that's going to change the dynamic.
Oh, it already will. I mean, I'm listening to my son, who's a lawyer out in Indianapolis, and he works for a drug company, which everybody will know because I said Indianapolis. But they all worked in the office until they stopped working in the office, and now nobody wants to go back to the office. So yeah, it's happening.
Right. So, but I mean, just down the road, how much that's going to change the dynamic of? I mean, I was thinking about pay-wise, you get paid more money to work DC and major metropolitan areas. So if you can work from anywhere, is that going to level things out? I don't know. I mean,
That's a good question.
it's like I'm looking for a new position now, and I'm trying to still get DC money, but live down here in Tidewater. So I managed to do good so far. I'm very happy, but it's like I've priced myself out of the market here in Tidewater. So, but if I can work remotely, I'll get a company that's based in DC, not one that's based down the street. So
Go for it, dude. Go
but
for it.
it's, I mean, if you think about it, will that localize? Will it average out the incomes, because you can work anywhere? You can't argue cost of living if you don't live in DC. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully, it just means everybody makes more money. But
Yeah.
that's the one. I think we dropped a couple. I thought we were up to 18. Did some people drop off? Okay. Sorry. I'm driving people away, Shelby, so I will have no one left to listen to you when So before I do
nonetheless.
if you're ready, we're already at 10:15. And
Yes, I'm ready. But can we, in a second, share the screen real quick? Just give me a few seconds, first of all, for intro.
Oh, certainly. Let me.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to. I think anyone can share at any time. I don't think I have it locked down. So go ahead and get ready. I will. Well, you can get. I'll try and introduce you, and then you can give more about yourself if you like. But this is Worshipful Shelby Chandler. He is the current Worshipful Master of George Washington Lodge of Research, number 1753?
1732.
1732, which I assume is when Washington was born.
Yes.
And he is member of Fredericksburg Lodge and a host of other things. And I'm sure he can add more of his CV for us if you like. But he will be our speaker today. I've been looking forward to this. It's an interesting topic, and I'm looking forward to hear what he has to say about it. So with no further ado, Brother Chandler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Brother Douglas. Brethren, greetings. My name is Shelby Chandler, as Chris has said. Just to give you a bit of a background with me, I am a past master of Fredericksburg Lodge number 4 in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I served as the charter master for the Research Lodge, and because of COVID-19 taking away the master that we had, he was going to have to step away. I ended up becoming master again in a last-minute situation. But I'm master and of the Research Lodge, and we'll do what we can to make sure that research continues. It's great to be working with Virginia Research Lodge, our sister lodge in research. And this presentation is part of the George Washington Lodge of Research. It's something that occurred long before it through a brother from Fredericksburg Lodge by the name of Michel Bellon. Michel Bellon was Tyler for Fredericksburg Lodge for a few years. And I was a young Mason at the time, and I sat out there with him instead of being inside doing the ritual work. And he mentioned something about the French Resistance, and I began to inquire about it and realized that he was a wealth of knowledge when it came to direct experience with the French Resistance. He was part of it. And so I inquired more, and when he told me his whole story, I was in a situation where I was like, we need to get this recorded. And so I started working an effort to make sure that happened. And this is a result of that effort to this day. And so let me see if I can get this shared so I can have the presentation in front of me. Only the host can share in this meeting. Okay. But you got to change it now. Let's see. Come on, where's it at? Where's the PowerPoint? I don't think it's allowing me to do the PowerPoint on this. Okay. Oh no.
Sorry. I just changed the settings so anyone can share. You should be able to share now.
Well, yeah, but it's not allowing me to get to my PowerPoint. Give me a second.
Oh, no.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
All right.
Let's see.
And that's a picture of Shelby's grandson as his profile pic. That's clearly not Shelby.
Is that right? Oh, boy.
Wow. Yep.
Let's see. Let me see if I can pull this up.
All right.
This should have already been up. I don't see how it got closed. My apologies.
That's all right. Brother Shelby is preparing his presentation. We'll resume with him in a moment. Welcome, Brother Gilbert. Nice to have you join us.
Thank you.
All right. Nice to have you here. And Brother Tripp, I see, is back.
Yeah, so having some technical issues this morning, so sorry for that.
Well, you're not the only one, so don't feel bad.
Apparently, yeah.
Good to be here.
I guess I'm going to have to go ahead and do it without it because it's not allowing me to bring it up. It's not an option, and I don't understand why.
Can you just share your desktop and do it that way?
Well, I was doing it on my tablet, so I mean, unless I get off and go on my computer, which I probably could do if you give me a minute.
But you
have to re-invite me.
We can do that. Go right ahead.
All right, let me go ahead and do that.
I can always edit this out. Okay. So, yes, because, well, I can record this and clean it up, or I can just play it like this. It don't matter. I have a question for everybody while we're waiting. Do any of you go back and watch the YouTube videos of previous chats that you've either been on or that you missed? I'm just curious. Has anyone here gone back and watched the YouTube channels, at least part of it, of Prison? Yeah, Clayton has. Okay, good. All right. I'm just curious if there's, okay, and Gordon does. Good. I just want to make sure, because I honestly, I mean, I go to the effort of uploading them. It's not tremendously hard, believe me. It's just like basically sitting there and babysitting it because it's such a large file, and then just uploading it with a little blurb at the front and back. But I just hope other people are benefiting from it. Mm-hmm. I'd like to think down the road, some other people will come along and get involved in this and say, oh, you've got 6 months or a year's worth of meetings. That's cool. And go back and watch them.
Is there a place where I could actually, I know there are some that I wanted to say and then forgot.
Uh-huh.
Is there a place where I can, how do I find them?
Oh,
I've done it once, but I can't remember,
Let me do this.
God, I look awful. Hang on, I'm going to turn on the light here.
You are a bit dim.
People have been saying that about me.
And you need more light.
That's it. Hang on.
Okay. Oh, Shelby's up now. Okay. I was going to put something in the chat. Yep, Shelby's got it up now. There we go. I just wanted to put something up there real quick. If you'll give me 1 sec before Shelby starts again. Let's see. Grab all my URLs. I'll go ahead and do a blurb here. I know Shelby's ready. I'll go back to him. I can put this in the chat for everybody. This is everyone in meeting. Okay, this is our Facebook page for Virginia Research, our website for Virginia Research where you can look up previous papers, and then the YouTube channel is where you can look up all of the previous videos are on there. I have an unstated meetings channel that you can follow and just watch them in order, and then my email address if anyone needs to get a hold of me directly. But Facebook Messenger is the best way to get a hold of me. Brother Shelby, if you're ready, if you want to go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
Perfect. Okay. In that case, we'll go ahead and get into this. Like I said, Brother Michel Bellon was a member of Fredericksburg Lodge, and through interaction with him, we found out the information. So understand that most of my background as a historian, because I also do work as the assistant superintendent for the James Monroe Birthplace Park and Museum, as well as I work with the James Monroe Memorial Foundation. My background is mostly American and colonial history. However, because of this, because living in Fredericksburg, and I had to learn about the Civil War, make sure that I know a good deal about that. And because of Michel Bellon, I have done some research into this, but most of it's going to be focused on his experience more than anything else. So just to let you know that background. So if there's any questions, please ask. I'll answer it best I can. Okay. Brother Michel Bellon, Michel Henry Bellon was born in Paris, France on December 19th, 1926. And he died I missed the age on there, but he died in August 6th, 2014, one day before my birthday. I was going back and looking at the records on that, and the last time I saw him was a week before he passed away. I was talking to him, and because of his health, he had limited mobility and so he was, one of the biggest things he wanted to do is be back in lodge with his brothers. And I was working with a couple of past masters to help make that happen. Unfortunately, he passed away before we were able to do such. For his Masonic record, he was initiated, passed, and raised in Amity Lodge in Massachusetts. He was an apprentice in November 4th, 1977, Fellowcraft at December 9th, 1977, and Master Mason. He was raised in January 17th, 1978. And he would affiliate with Fredericksburg Lodge on May 8th, 1998. One of the articles that, and just to let you know, and this will be stated in the at the end, during this time, while a lot of research was done, especially by me, there was 3 other brothers that helped out in this, and that was Brother Dennis David, Worshipful Tony Rudder, and Worshipful Christopher Decker. And we all contributed to this by trying to compile whatever information we could from him and his family. One of the things that we acquired was this right here. Let me minimize the panel there. And it says, decision number 297, Secretary of State to the Presidency of the Council of State, cite the Order of the Brigade. Michel Henry Bellon, in August 1943, as liaison officer of the Astor Network sector of France Fighting Force in Nesle, voluntarily committed at 17 years of age to the Army of the Vercors, and took part in the French region of Recette, Roman, Vedmo, Danes, and Lyons. And please forgive if I make the mistake of not pronouncing it correctly. He showed great courage and military qualities by successfully destroying, at the peril of his own life, a German ammunition depot. After the liberation, he joined the 2nd Airborne Infantry Regiment, 4th Battalion of Foot. This quote includes the award of the Military Cross, the Croix de Guerre, with the Bronze Star. So at the time, after listening to his conversation, just to let you know, I was part of the National Sojourners, Chapter 545 in Fredericksburg, Virginia. For those of you who do not know what National Sojourners is, it's a Masonic body in the United States that was designed to meet the needs of military Masons who were part of the military, who have served. It was started during the Spanish-American War, and membership is to any Freemason, but it's focused mostly to those who were veterans or currently serving in the military, and those military servicemen who were allies to the United States at the time. Anytime that they served in a situation that was in an alliance with the United States, they too can join as full members. So this seemed like an appropriate place to do a presentation. So I got with the leadership of I was the 2nd vice president at the time. On the left, you can see Sandy Mackey, who's the 1st vice president, and Steve Stanford, who was the president at the time. The 1st vice president's job is to coordinate programs. And so I talked with Sandy and worked it out to where Michel Bellon can talk about his experience. And we had it all set up to where that flag before him was flown at the Capitol and flown at Fredericksburg Masonic Lodge, and it was gifted to him after the presentation. But on November 16th, 2007, a meeting of this National Sojourners, Brother Michel gave a presentation on his life as a 14-year-old boy with the French resistance of Nazi-occupied France and the Masonic leadership that had helped organize these French patriots. On June 22nd, 1940, France surrendered to Nazi Germany, and Britain found that they stood alone. France was divided into two sections: the occupied zone, which was controlled by Nazi Germany, and the free zone, which was controlled by the new fascist Vichy government allied with the Germans and Italians. Those who resented German occupation and the Vichy government eventually formed cells that were collectively named the French Resistance. And as you can see there, just for reference for this presentation, you can see that Paris is in the occupied zone, and the Vichy government is in the purple down there. And there's also areas that a lot of areas of activity that would be in the purple zone that will be part of this presentation as well. It appears that people in this discussion were working on both sides of that. Oh. The German Gestapo, or secret police, controlled the internal operations of the occupied zone up north in the red, and the Milice Française, or French militia, also known as the Miliciens, was a paramilitary force trained by the Gestapo and controlled internal operations within the Vichy government free zone. So according to Spartacus Olson, who's a host and producer for the Time Ghost chronological documentaries, mostly works out of Germany, he reported that the French people were unable to, like I said, this is his point of view, the French people were unable to even consider the means to resist at that time once they surrendered, because they were in a state of collective shock. They were emotionally reeling, not just from the sense of betrayal they felt from their own government, which surrendered, but from the swiftness of the German military's ability to take control and coordinate their efforts through force and policies. The various organizations that were large enough to resist German occupation were either not yet willing to resist or were at an ideological odds with each other, be they nationalists, communists, academics, clergy, and various other social or cultural groups. This is at the time when France surrendered and the Germans took control. Furthermore, the complete surrender of the French military ensured that 1.8 million soldiers would remain prisoners of war instead of being out in the area hiding with the means to resist. This could have been one entity large enough and capable enough of bringing together the French people to resist. As a result of this total loss and sense of defeatism, there was a lack of popular support for the resistance by many of the French people. They were not only struggling with their new subjugation, but also with the traitorous acts of many French who chose to support the Vichy government. Olson believes that the day the French collective set their minds to resistance began roughly July 14th, 1941. I think that's also Bastille Day, when General Karl Heinrich von Stumpnagel, commander of the occupation of France, sent a report to Germany that 5,600 Parisians defied orders and demonstrated against the Germans at the Place de Etoile. So, October 13th, 1940, once the Milician was established and trained by the Gestapo, and they were set out to occupy Vichy, the government area, the Vichy Free Zone government immediately decreed that all Freemasons were to be arrested. And they sent many of our brethren to concentration camps. The Vichy propaganda machine went into overdrive to label Freemasons as threat to the French people. And you can see to the left there that they even established a movie. It was not a very well-made one, but it was one that was shown nonetheless. And it's a story about a Vichy official who got involved in Freemasonry and found out the errors of his ways in doing such, and how Freemasonry was out to undermine the French people. So yeah, the propaganda machine was in full working order. Following this policy, the Freemasons within the occupied zone convened to discuss the ideas of the first active passive resistance force, and left the meeting agreeing to no more than 3 active participants per lodge in the resistance. As a result of this meeting, the natural network of 211 French Masonic lodges became the core foundation of the newly established French resistance. Now, this is coming directly from Michel Bellon, and you're going to see how he understands this in a second here. But they came together because of these rules that were being placed, and that basically it directly impacted them. Now, understand that what was being said by Spartacus Olson was that it wasn't really until July of 1941 that most other organizations or social groups could not or would not begin the resistance. But this is in 1940 here, and because Masonry is a natural network, they were probably more, they're probably better organized than most organizations to be able to do such. The agreement of 3 active members per lodge was so that if any of the 3 were caught, the rest of the brethren would be protected, and none would know which other took their place. It was further agreed that many of the Masons were to join the various military groups with the intentions of returning home to teach others what martial skills they learned. A Masonic resistance group became functional and operational because the Masonic lodges are natural networks within any society. As I was saying earlier, if you look at it, if you look at the way that we are set up within our own society, we are a natural network that can do many things. One of the things I tried to do as master was establish a organization because of what happened during the Louisiana being flooded during the Hurricane Katrina. A lot of the police officers that were supposed to be out helping the society and try to control the craziness that was going on there did not show up for work. The reason why was because they were at home trying to protect their families. One of the things I try to do is try to use that natural network to establish the means by which, if, for example, there's a national crisis or emergency, and some of our brothers who are first responders have to go and respond at massive scale, that maybe the Masonic lodges can create a network of support so that when they have to go into harm's way, the brethren can take care of those brothers' families, and they would have a place to go to in situations of emergencies. Is there any questions so far on this? Okay, we'll go ahead and continue then. The decision was made that this resistance by Masons should gather intelligence, establish communications with London, assist escaping Jews, rescue downed Allied pilots, sabotage German and Vichy machinations and policies, and to support Allied espionage infiltration. It was later recognized that some of these Masons would freely volunteer to work within the Vichy and German governments in order to collect information that could be sent to London. And if you look at the picture, it's not too easy to see, but basically these were the Masonic lodges of France at the time, and the size of how many number of lodges in that general area. And as you can see, there was 2 areas, key areas, Paris and Lyon, that were over 20 lodges in that one area, whereas some of them had 10 to 20, 5 to 10, 2 to 5, and 1 lodge accordingly. But of the 211 lodges, they all supported this movement. Michel's father, Michel Bellon, his father was a Freemason at the time, and he was a member of the resistance, as was his stepfather, Roger Bellon, who was the leader of one of the Masonic lodges and one of the 3 selected from his lodge. He eventually goes on to become commander of the Andromeda sector of the resistance. But as a boy, Michel participated. He was permitted to support the resistance, and he would become invaluable to their efforts because his ability to befriend enemy officers, and later for his English speaking skills to be able to act as a translator. That latter part is going to be of key significance and importance because not every Frenchman can speak English, and when the war comes back to their doorstep, that becomes a vital part of it. So on June 17th, 1941, this group of Freemasons officially formed the Provincial Council of French Masonry, communicating with London and working out of an apartment in Paris. Now, this is the occupied zone up north. So they're working against primarily against the Germans, although they are working with those lodges in the Vichy area as well. This would become the decision-making committee of action until 1944. Brother Michel tells of the story of Brother Levant, who for a time headed this provisional council. Brother Levant was arrested, sentenced, and sent before an elderly German gentleman of great authority who repeatedly asked him for his birth dates, plural. Shortly thereafter, Brother Levant began to realize that the interrogator was a German Freemason who was attempting to learn his Masonic birth dates. He was trying to establish that he was indeed a Freemason, and once that was established, Brother Levant, once he established that Brother Levant was indeed a French Mason, that German brother and German authority, gentleman of authority, not only let him go, but gave him the name of the person who informed on him, who happened to be another French Mason who was part of the resistance. So the fact that that German was there and a Mason in hiding, he was in support. He was supporting his brothers, even though their countries were considered enemies. Now, I do know that many Germans during this time who were Freemasons were hiding the fact that they were Freemasons. As we all know, we know that many of them tore up their dues cards and hid within the German SS, the German army, in order to protect themselves. And many of them, because they did it so early in World War II, got sent off to the Eastern Front to fight the Russians. The majority of the Masons were sent in that direction because they did so early in the war. And Operation Barbarossa sent them towards Russia. But there were many other Germans who were in hiding also. They hid the fact that they were Masons. But in this particular case, it shows that they were still helping their brothers. While many Freemasons were captured, tortured, and killed by the enemy, of those captured, few were imprisoned. Most were sent to Germany to be interred into concentration camps. Captured Freemasons were not given trials. They were tortured for information, then sent to concentration camps. They were designated political prisoners, and because of that, they were required to wear the red triangle on their clothes, which was a specific designation for political prisoners. According to the publication Our Red Triangle, the number of Freemasons killed by Nazis and their counterparts is estimated to be at about 80,000 to 200,000. This is the research that they did on that. I am not sure those numbers are correct, but I am reporting them based off of what was reported by another Masonic organization in 2012. And to make this story real for you, that right there is a picture of Roger Bellon, Michel's stepfather. April 11th, 1945. The very day, it says, the very day I was delivered from Buchenwald death camp by Patton's army. To my kids, with love, Roger Bellon. And of course, that's Roger Bellon right there, coming out of the concentration camp. Unfortunately, Brother Michel's father is captured. Unfortunately, he dies while in Auschwitz. He is tortured and then sent to Auschwitz concentration camp, where he shortly thereafter lays down his working tools. Brother Roger Bellon is also captured and tortured. Much later, he was captured much later, and he was captured and tortured. He was sent to Buchenwald, but he survived long enough to be rescued. From what Michel says, his father was on a motorcycle trying to escape the Germans who discovered him, and he was on a motorcycle with another guy who had lost his legs before the war. He was a pilot that crash landed in the Andes and instead of taking them to a proper doctor, the person over there thought to save his life, decided to cut his legs off instead. But he still participated in the resistance, and I guess he was shot from the motorcycle, and his father was captured and taken to Auschwitz. He never recovered.
Hey, Shelby. So
yes.
I thought Roger was his father.
Roger Bellon is his stepfather.
Stepfather. Okay.
Yeah. Here's the curiosity about Michel's life. Michel Bellon is not his name. And the reason why, as it was explained to me by him, was that the French government, he changed his name, and there's people within his family that's being protected. The curious thing about Michel is that his family seems to have been very well connected before the war. And when I asked him his name from birth, he clarified to me that he's not even allowed to tell me that, and that this is something that the French government also considers a matter of secrecy. And he chose, and what happens after his father died, I guess Michel took him in for the most part and made him his stepson. And he's been very, he speaks highly of Roger Bellon, and he considers him his father in every way. And so it's kind of confusing in that sense, but I do know that when I tried to contact the French government when he died, they were kind of they didn't really want to talk about that. That only the fact that he passed on, and that they were grateful to find out the information. So I do know that based off my conversation with the French government, that there was something that they didn't say who his actual name was, or what his actual name was, and that they wanted it left that way. Because I was curious to find out, to be honest with you. But Michel himself had his own part to play in the resistance movement. Initially, he was sent to the free zone, where he collected information and delivered documents and reports to people going back to England. Brother Michel also noted that as a kid, he befriended an Italian officer who hated both Mussolini and the Germans so much that he would divulge information on what the Germans were doing, and young Michel would get this information, quote, to the right people, unquote. Yeah, he used to laugh when he talked about this Italian officer, and he found great humor in this guy who was just, he was, I guess, living a life where he was just disgusted being around so many Germans, and the fact that he just liked them so much, he was willing to divulge information. That's kind of curious. But that was how Michel made a name for himself, was because he was bringing in authentic information quite often. Well, eventually, apparently, the Germans found out about the leak, and because of this, his stepfather Roger Bellon had to show up to get him, and he informed him that his name was on the German capture list, and they were at that moment coming to arrest him. So they snuck him out of there and took him to another location, which was a school where they said he would be safe, but it also happened to be a central, major part of the French resistance regarding partisan activity. And because of that, eventually Michel chose to join them as a soldier of the Astor network sector. So basically, from what I hear, it was a school on a hill, and it had a flat top on that. And there was opportunities to create drop points and land small planes at nighttime there. But this will become a hub of activity for the resistance as time goes on. Let me get back to there. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Brother Michel reported that when he first got to the school, the British would drop night deliveries of basic need items to them twice a week. Shortly after the Americans joined the fight, the Americans took over the deliveries and began dropping clothes, ammunition, rifle, mortars, explosive, machine guns nightly at an unprecedented rate. And then one night, 3 Americans dropped from the sky and informed the resistance that they were OSS agents sent to prepare them to assist in the upcoming Allied invasion. So the Americans trained the French in the use of these equipment, and they worked together to clear the fields below the school for incoming gliders and paratroopers. The Office of Strategic Service was a wartime intelligence agency and predecessor to the what's now the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. So once the Americans got involved, that school became overloaded and it had a lot of activity, and they became very essential to the effort. Eventually, the resistance received word that someone reported to the Nazis that there were strangers in the area, and the head of the school decided it was time for the Americans to leave. He also informed the Americans that they would need to escape, but they would have to do it by ground, and someone would have to be their interpreter in their trek to overland to Spain. Since Brother Michel spoke English, he was assigned the duty of getting them out of France. I guess so few people spoke English at the time that he was with them anyways, helping them translate from what he said. Whoop. Okay. It was during this journey. One of the stories I wanted to make sure that you got a hold of, that got to know about, was before we go there. The first order that he was given once he was told that he was going to be going with these Americans, he talked to the Americans and he said, "We're going to make it out to where you're going to be deaf and dumb. And if anybody asks questions, I will speak for you, and I'll do hand signs, like if I'm talking to you with them. So just don't say a word," because they spoke English, they didn't speak French. And so basically he would be in charge of making sure that they got out. And if there was any speaking that have to be done, he would do it. The first order of business that he was given was to find them French clothes so that they can look like Frenchmen. He laughed about during his presentation. It was one of the most difficult jobs he was given, because most Frenchmen were about 5'8" to 5'10", and the shortest American was 6'3". So he had quite a time finding clothes for them. Yeah, he eventually did such, but it took great effort, according to Michel. It was during this journey to Spain that Michel and the Americans would see the aftermath of many atrocities done to the people whose bodies were left by the Germans as an example for others to see and fear. Brother Michel reported seeing the bodies of rape victims and children, and that it would be something that he would remember forever. And it always made him very angry to recall it. Yeah, I mean, when he was talking about it, you could see the change in his face. Understand this. Michel Bellon was a very kind, quiet gentleman. You would not think that he's done much in his life, and he was very respectful of everybody. And you didn't really see him in any way. I don't ever recall seeing him angry about much of anything, except for that moment when he was recollecting that. And it was quite a significant change on his face. It was quite striking for me because it was completely out of his character. But he remembered every bit of it. And you could see it in his eyes when he was telling the story. He didn't give much details. He gave a little bit, but not much. And I'm not going to go into that. But the thing is that it really bothered him greatly, and rightly so. But it was one of the reasons why I felt it was so important to tell his story. Because, you know, when he died in 2014, but before that, I realized one day he was going to be gone and somebody's going to have to tell his story. And it came to fruition, of course, because he passed on in 2014. Brother Michel and the three Americans would eventually make it to the United States Embassy in Spain, where they were immediately given a flight to London. It is here where Michel's American friends were separated from him in order to be officially debriefed regarding their time with the resistance. And as you see, that Spain is much further away, but they were able to make it to France, cross over the Pyrenees, and escape occupied France. And one of the reasons why that was possible in my research, I found that there was a history of exfiltration and infiltration into and out of France during World War II, and that these border crossings, paratroopers and people who crash landed or sea landings, they were instructed to, they were given a basic guideline of things, directions they can go and places they can go to escape. And this is a map that came from those documentation on what they can do to escape France. And it's very likely that this is the path that they took. I'm not certain if it is or not. I came across it in my research. So before leaving France, his stepfather, Roger Bellon, directed Michel to seek out his godfather in London, who was a French general. Apparently, this French general made it out with the French Free Forces of France and de Gaulle. They made it to London. There was about 2,000 French soldiers that escaped with de Gaulle. But apparently this French general was one of them. He was, whoever he was already before the war was Michel's godfather. So when the Americans got separated from him in London, they told him to wait there, and they would try to reach out to his godfather, but they had to go be debriefed by the United States Army, or the American government in London. Brother Michel was not able to find his godfather and could not, and nobody knew where he was, apparently. So the British persuaded him instead to join the British Army SAS or paratroopers. He made his 5 required jumps and received wings before his godfather finally found him and used his influence to process Michel out of the British Army. He had other plans for his godson. As the way Michel told it, he said he did his jumps and then he saw his godfather. His godfather said, "What are you doing in that silly uniform? Get out of that. We got plans for you." So basically they got him out of the British Army and they sent him on another another duty instead. Michel was then sent to Morocco to recertify as a pilot because he was known. He had flown planes since he was 12 years of age. That's the thing. 12 years old, and he was already a pilot. While training as a French pilot in Marrakesh, he received his pilot's license and was selected as one of the 10 Frenchmen to enter a U.S. Army Air Corps program to train French pilots on American fighter planes. Whoop, get rid of that. Initially, he flew transport planes while in Marrakesh, but the American flying program had relocated him to Casablanca, Morocco, where he's given the opportunity to train and fly in American planes, such as the P-51 Mustang, the P-47 Thunderbolt, and the B-17 Flying Fortress. At the completion of this program, Brother Michel would fly 4 combat missions as a bomber pilot against the Germans. It was during this time that Brother Michel would meet with the Paja Thami El Glaou, Lord of the Atlas, who was friend of the Bellon family. And after hearing Michel's story, he gifted him with a pair of fighting knives for his bravery during his time in the French resistance. At the time, El Glaou was one of the richest men in the world and was often visited by friends such as Charlie Chaplin, the French actress Colette, and Sir Winston Churchill, and he attended the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II as Brother Churchill's guest. I think the story has it is that he gifted 2 gifts to the Queen, but because of the manner in which the gifts were, she could not accept them. But apparently the Bellon family knew of the Pasha. He was also known as the Lion of the Atlas. So he was very respectful of Michel, and I guess the stories really took him, and he was very much taken with Michel. When the war ended, Michel was 21 years old, and for his service in the resistance, he received the Croix de Guerre, or Military Cross, which outside the Legion of Honor is the highest French military citation that any military personnel could receive for acts of bravery and heroism. Brother Michel received this award at 17 years old for destroying a Nazi fuel and munitions depot. Famous Americans who also were recipients of this Valorous Medal are Audie Murphy, George Patton, Dwight Eisenhower, and Jim Stewart. He also recalls that one of his favorite memories was when he finally came to America in 1951 to become a U.S. citizen. He decided to take the day off to begin the process, but was informed that his paperwork was already approved and that his 3 OSS friends from the war were being flown in to be beside him when he took took upon himself the oath of American citizenship. Yeah, he said that was one thing where he beamed with pride on that. Although he was kind of annoyed because he said he had to wait for hours till they showed up. But they were already called in when they found out who he was. He reported his name and that he wanted to become an American citizen. And somehow they knew to contact these 3 guys who got on a plane and flew over to meet with him. And they were there when he became an American. The story also goes that this is 1951. Once he became an American citizen, one of the first things his 3 friends asked him was, did he want to join the United States Army or Army Air Corps? They said that they would they wouldn't mind having him on. And he said, well, let me think about it. I guess he saw enough of it in Europe. And then just about the time that happened, the Korean War broke out, and he said, no, I'm past. I'm a coward. And we laughed about that. How can this man call himself a coward after all he's seen and done? Quite amazing. Brother Michel would go on to be a model American citizen, flying as a pilot for Air France until he retired He would be married twice, meeting his second wife, Rita, and remain with her until his death in 2014. He loved being a Freemason and a member of Fredericksburg Lodge Number 4, and he served as its Tyler from 2004 to 2008 and would support his lodge as its Masonic Home Ambassador from 2004 to 2010 until his health began to deteriorate. By consensus of the lodge and authorization by the Worship Master, Michel Bellon is the first Mason since the 19th century to have his remains interred within Fredericksburg Masonic Cemetery. This is a photo, I think it was in 2014, of that tree right there is where his remains were placed. It's the final resting place for Brother Michel Bellon. Fredericksburg Masonic Cemetery in 1784 is considered the oldest cemetery in the Americas, for a Masonic cemetery in the Americas, I should say. And there's a picture of us there, who was there for that ceremony. The lady right there is Rita Bellon, who is his widow, and she's still alive to this day, and she knows a good deal about his life, but she too has remained tight-lipped about it as well. But I mean, there's not much you can do about that, except for do your own research and with the information that he's provided us. So there's a picture of Michel, Brother Michel. This is in one picture. I would say that's 1944, 1945, compared to him in 2007. You can look at his face, you can see it's the exact same guy. I mean, that's him. But eventually, so the French Resistance was made up of many different factions, and eventually they were organized. But even before they really got organized, the Masons had a pretty good organization working themselves. Roughly between 600 to 1,000 people operating throughout France in the different zones. The Masons, I do not believe, I know that they participated in some of the guerrilla activities within Vichy over at the Vercors. I know that Brother Roger Bellon was the commander of the Andromeda Network sector, and Michel was a member of was a soldier in the Astor sector. Brother Michel was not a Mason; he was too young at the time, but he was surrounded by Masons as a child, his father's friends, and he was there at a lot of their moments. But because of his some of his skill sets, it put him right in the center of a lot of the activities. I know I didn't mention much about some of the actions that they've taken, and that's because I can only, as I said, I'm not an expert in the resistance as much as I am in the information that I researched from the storytelling and the relating the information back by Michel. And a lot of it I knew was corroborated by my communication with the French government on general information, and the research that I did corroborated a lot of the information, as well as his military citations as well. But that's pretty much the story that I have for you about the relationship between Freemasonry and the resistance that became part of the Maquis, which was what it was known in more of the rural areas. Is there anybody that have any questions at this time about this?
Be sure to unmute if you have a question.
I have one. I'm curious, Worshipful Shelby, about the activity of Freemasons in the resistance. It sounds like it was quite thorough but I wonder if there was any Masonic organization in charge of it, or whether this was done more or less on a lodge by lodge basis. I mean, somebody theoretically would provide information up and coordinate, but I don't know it.
Yes, it was mentioned that the 211 lodges were organized by a provisionary council of Masons, and they worked out of an apartment.
Oh, right.
In Paris. So they were organized. They were organized very early on, and the biggest reason why they were more organized than other groups was, as I said, they are a natural network in any society. And think about it: there's a lodge in every city, and they all have while we disagree a lot of times, even now, on political ideology, a lot of our set tenets are the same. So we stand on similar grounds on many things.
Yeah, that's what I was really trying to get at. I was fumbling for the question, and that is, did something similar happen in the American Revolution?
I know that in the American Revolution that a lot of lodges were used as points to convey information to the people through announcements, but I'm not too sure if there was actually any kind of organized movement. Majority of the lodges that supported Washington were or a lot of times. I know that there were some that did not, but it was never really, and it's something that was massive like this was. So I don't know. I do know that the ones that supported him were mostly of Scottish, definitely were the Scottish movements. That's how come the English called it a Presbyterian revolt. For you brothers from Scotland who are here, the British did call it a Presbyterian revolt because of that. I know that the main players in Boston were from St. Andrew's Lodge, which was of a Scottish warrant. Brother, what's his name? Paul Revere, Samuel Adams, and the likes, Joseph Warren. They were all part of Scottish lodges. Fredericksburg had a very major Scottish influence as well. They were right in the middle of a Scottish community of merchants from all over Fredericksburg, especially in Falmouth, across the river, were Scottish mostly. And so there was a very heavy Scottish community here in Fredericksburg. So
Ira, there is a lot of conjecture back and forth about whether Masons were actively involved in the Boston Tea Party, whether it was planned. The common fable is that everything was absolutely planned and organized within a Masonic lodge, and everything was totally. It may be that Masons. I don't think we have concrete proof one way or the other, but the popular.
Yeah, we have one thing.
What's that?
We have the minutes from St. Andrew's Lodge, which states at that time, during that timeline, the consigners of tea took up the brethren's time.
Right. So it is possible that a lodge or one or two lodges might have been directly involved.
Yes.
But as for your question of being like an
organized effort
network, I don't think anything like that existed.
No, we do know that
lodges and individual Masons taking action.
Yeah, we do know that St. Andrew's Lodge were heavily in support of the revolutionary cause. We do know that Tun Tavern was as well. That's where your Marines came out of.
Yep.
We know that I know that Fredericksburg Lodge had 95 of its members support the cause, which was a great amount of them. But other than that, I don't know of anything organized. France, actually, from what Michel had laid out for us, they were very well organized and they utilized that. But then again, when the ability to communicate was much better during World War II than it was during the Revolutionary War as well. And they were not a separate group. They were one country, whereas in the American cause, there was 13 different colonies. And people need to remember that people in these different colonies they considered themselves completely different entities, people with different languages. There was German-speaking Americans just as much out of Pennsylvania, German-speaking Dutch and others, and Catholic members in Maryland and they were not very organized, and they even disagreed with each other in many different ways. They were not as organized as the French would have been during World War II. Because the one thing that they had also is that almost every Frenchman and French Mason had a reason not to like the Germans. They were out to stop Freemasonry and put them and take them away from their families and put them in concentration camps. That's quite a motivator.
Yep.
Any other question?
This is just one for you, and I'll put my email in chat to you in just a second. I'm very interested in the idea of Freemasons maybe working through Masonic support, helping brethren in times of need like this, like in Katrina. So I'll put my email in the chat so we can follow up. It's an area that I was working in before I retired.
Yeah, I tried to start what I called the 3 C's. It was a committee of, I forgot what I called it, but basically I had a brother try to put together all the people who had backgrounds in emergency situations, kind of like FEMA, law enforcement, anybody who was in federal threat assessment, and try to get them together to try to create a template that should something happen, there would be brothers who would open up their houses for the families so that they can take care of them, so that these brothers can do their work. We had a few brothers being near Washington, D.C., whose job was, if there was something to do with anything, even a nuclear issue, a nuclear threat, their job was to go into harm's way instead of coming away from it. When everybody else is leaving that ground zero, they're headed towards it. So the thing is how do you take care of their families? Because that was what I learned from Katrina when we had brothers coming back here and explaining some of the things that were happening over there. I realized that we need to establish as brothers a way to protect their families so that they can feel they can do their job.
Thank you.
And Michel's experience helped with that as well.
Did you gather any other information that you could learn more about how the resistance worked? I mean, you say this is mainly your interviews with Brother Michel, but Dick, were you able to find other sources that you could dig deeper if you want to find more about how the resistance, because I'm curious about how it all came together, how they were able to communicate, what all they did.
Well, yeah, they said that there was one guy that eventually got them all organized. I don't know if that's true or not. I think the idea that they were able to get organized was the fact that they knew that the Allies were coming. The invasion of Normandy was a done deal. Nobody just knew where it was going to be and when. So when the gliders started coming in, when supplies started being dropped, when more attention was given to them so that they could wreak havoc with the infrastructure, behind enemy lines, they knew something was going to be happening anyways. I believe that's when things got really organized. I know the Battle of the Vercors was probably the one major battle that the French really the resistance participated in. And that turned out miserable for them, apparently. It scattered a lot of them. But basically the Vercors, that area, it was like, from what I saw, was most of the land was like, there was like sheer cliffs that goes up. And then when you the road that gets you there, you had to go through those sheer cliffs coming up. And then once you got to the top, it was flatlands and some hills. But the thing is, you can live there. You can live up there very well. And basically, it was a natural place for security. Unfortunately, paratroopers and planes kind of like messes with that ability to keep yourself separate from the rest of the world. But apparently the Battle of the Vercors did happen. And what happened was a lot of those people who were in the resistance were captured or killed as a result of the overwhelming forces by the Germans and the Vichy government. But that's the one major guerrilla activity that they did have. Other than that, most of your activities were sabotage, blowing up depots, for example, like what Michel did to receive the Croix de Guerre. So basically, I don't have much information from any interviews from that based off of what, other than what's already on the internet. It helped corroborate a lot of the information, but that was it.
I was excited when you gave me this as a possible topic. We were deciding what to have you talk about. I've been interested for some time in doing a paper on the Masons involved in French resistance, but my first source is the internet. Try to find online things to find because it's easier to get started. But almost everything when you search for Freemasonry and World War II is you got a lot about Masons were rounded up, Masons were persecuted by the Nazis, and on, but there's very little about how we were involved in the resistance. Just sort of
and the thing is, there is very little
without any details, and that's what it made it hard to start digging for information.
And it is too. Like I said, when the initial agreement was, it was 3 per lodge, and even then they didn't really know each other from lodge to lodge. They worked through the coordinated effort of those people out of that one apartment, the Provisionary Council. Eventually, they would get integrated into the group that was known as the Resistance, all of them. The problem with the Resistance was that you had people who were nationalists, people who were communists, people who were Jewish, people who were Catholic priests, or Catholics themselves. And you had clergymen, you had people from academia, and they didn't agree. And a lot of them didn't even like each other. The one thing that we do know is that those who were communists were on the way outs and were all being rounded up very fast as Jews and Masons were. And those who were on the far right, the ones that they had a sense of love of France and that same ideology that of German glory, they had, especially with Vichy government, they had French glory. The problem is that how can you have French glory and support an outside entity like the Germans? And so a lot of times that was the biggest confusing thing for them, was that we want to support France, but we're puppets to the Germans. So how do we do this? How do we separate ourselves from the French? And that was the biggest problem that was going on in France. So a lot of times the people who did want to resist, that had more of a political ideology to the right, were torn between their hatred for the Germans and their love for France, and the fact that their government is a puppet of France. So they a lot of times did nothing. And it took them longer to participate in the resistance. Then you had trying to organize them, who's going to be in charge, who's going to have the say, and then whose priorities were going to be given top priority. And so it just became a mess. And the one thing that could have saved them, had France not surrendered and the French military was able to scatter and find hidden places to hide, they would have been the one central entity that could have brought them together faster. But the French government gave up and said, hey, take them.
And
take
turned them over.
1.8 million.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
French rifles for sale only dropped once. Yep. I did have a question. I guess if I could. Is now clearly when the Nazis came in and said basically we shut down, Freemasons are going to be arrested and all that. Obviously the lodges stopped meeting, at least publicly.
Yes.
Did you, in your research, did you find anything about like the Grand Lodge? Was it shut down? Did the Germans go there directly and take it over, or
I do not know. From what I've learned of this Provisionary Council and how the lodges came together, it doesn't sound like that there was any central Grand Lodge officer that participated. So that tells me either they were known publicly and arrested immediately, or they were just simply decided to take a low profile and not participate, or they participated as brothers and not grand officers.
To be clear, of course, there are or were then 3 major grand bodies in France and about 24 smaller ones. So it's not like there's not one overarching Grand Lodge for all of France. They're very divisive. I would imagine the grand body simply shut down or just gave the word, just we're going dark,
or were captured immediately.
Or, they may have been arrested. Okay.
So I do know that you have three grand bodies, but the thing is that lodges work within their groups for the most part. I do not know if these three different entities became the 211. I don't think so. I think that they worked within themselves. I could be wrong. I didn't do the research on that, but it's well, I don't know if they actually did that or they said let's just drop our differences. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, that would, well, because I gave a paper last year on the Grand Lodges in France, and there are over 20 different bodies of varying power. I didn't find much research on what size each one was, how many lodges were in each one. These might have all been primarily the same. They may have all been the Grand Orient. They may all have been, I forget all the terms they have from. They all have 4 letters.
I do know the difference. If there was any organization that could put their differences aside, it would have to be the Masons especially because they were directly threatened.
Absolutely.
And so the other people can squabble and argue because they weren't directly threatened.
Right. I think Ira had another question.
Yes. I'm sorry about this, folks, but I used to be a reporter, and when there's a good story, I just have to dig in.
No, that's all right. That's why we're here. I don't want to have someone give it a talk and then no one asks a question. It's
okay. I appreciate that.
Deeper into exploring it more. That's what the research bodies are about.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Worshipful Shelby,
yes.
This came up early in your talk where you said an elderly gentleman who apparently was a Freemason interrogated, I think it was not Bellon, it was...
no, it was Brother Levant.
You're right, Brother Levant. And basically once he found out that he was a Freemason, they gave him a free pass. And we, of course, as Virginia Freemasons, know well the history of brothers fighting brothers, finding out that they're actually brothers and helping each other throughout the Civil War.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious as to whether that happened, or whether you know whether that happened during the Second World War between, say, German brothers and French brothers.
Well, no, but I do know of a story that I'm still trying to corroborate. They say it's a true story. I haven't had any corroboration on it, but how much do you know about the 2009 movie that came out called Brothers War?
I don't know anything about it.
Okay, it was wasn't much money to fund it, but it was done. And basically what it is, it's a 2009 movie called Brothers War. What happened was it's based on a real life situation from what I've done research on so far. I haven't had anything to actually corroborate real evidence on it, but it has to do with a British major and a German captain. Basically, what I know of is that many of the Freemasons did go to the Eastern Front because they joined the army so early in order to hide from the government. What was also known is that the Gestapo was searching the German army for Masons so that they can arrest them. What happened was a lot of these Masons would try to find each other and help each other, and they'd try to get them into their own units so that they can stay together and protect each other. Well, as the story goes, the British major is a liaison to the Red Army. This is near the end of World War II. The Germans are on a retreat. The Allies are pushing them in and closing in on them. And basically what happened was they're in Poland at the time, and the British major keeps being sent somewhere else to go see something fluffy, and then the Soviets would go and do something else. And so what happened, he started being curious about what they were doing, so he one day got onto a vehicle and followed them, and at that time he saw them executing what remained of the Polish government, the civilian Polish government. And when they realized that he saw what they did, they grabbed him, arrested him, and threw him in prison with a bunch of German prisoners. And he's an ally. And at the same time, a unit that was fighting these Soviets was a German army unit. And this captain went to go see what the ruckus was about out there, and he saw the same exact thing as the British major. And what happens when he came back to his unit, the Gestapo was there interrogating the people. And eventually it came out to where it was revealed they were Masons. the Gestapo suspected it more than had the evidence, but a shooting broke out between the Germans and the Gestapo, and everybody was killed, and he was the one left. And when the Russians heard the noise, they came to see what was going on and captured him and threw him in that same prison. Well, basically, they found out that the plan, from what the story goes, the plan was that the Soviets had every intention of not just capturing Germany, but pushing through the Americans and going right up to the Spanish border, and capturing all of Europe for communism. The German and the British realized that the only saving grace they had was to try to escape and tell the Americans about this. And what happened was they realized that while in prison that they were Masonic brothers. And they realized that the Soviets at that time was going to become the biggest threat. And so what happened was they escaped, and the German helped the British major cross through the remnants of Nazi Germany to the Western Front. And just about the time they got to the Americans, they were in the woods, and he told the German to stay down behind the tree, and he was going to go talk to the Americans, excuse me. And so the British major walks up to the Americans and announces himself, and there happened to be a Soviet liaison there who, once he heard his name, pulled out his sidearm, shot him in the head, and dropped him in front of the Americans. The Americans, in turn, pointed their guns at the liaison, telling him to drop his weapon, or else. He dropped his weapon and walked away. When they investigated, they found the German captain hiding there, and he told them that the Soviets had planned to overrun the Americans and take all of Europe. And this is the story as to why Patton was so livid with the Russians, why he wanted to invade the Soviet Union, and why. And from what I've been told, Eisenhower was reported. This was reported to Eisenhower, who told the Soviets that we know your plan. If you cross over the lines that we all designated together, we will shoot back. And so basically, it was that Masonic relationship that allowed them to work together long enough to get to the Americans and warn them. I'm still trying to corroborate, but they say it's a true story, but I'm trying to find information on it. Unfortunately, I have all these projects. I haven't really delved back into it. So I'm ranting on that one.
I do need to wrap this up because I have to take my son somewhere. So I appreciate Brother Chandler giving a fascinating talk. There was a lot of really interesting stuff there. That was really cool. I enjoyed learning about Brother Michel's experience, and it kind of answered my question, but I do want to delve deeper into like the connections among the lodges and how they were able to build a network, to resist the Nazis. That's kind of been my focus. So, but this at least points me in a general direction. But thank you everybody for attending. And Brother Shelby, again, thank you. And Brother Joyner, I want to make sure you're aware that our Virginia Research Lodge will be meeting on May 15th in person.
Yeah, I've got it penciled in right now. I'm hoping to be there.
Since you are in Richmond, you have no excuse.
I have no excuse. It's less than like 8 miles from me. It's right by the Hardys.
Yes, it is. I was explaining that to somebody, Brother Ira, where that was down here. I want to point out that Brother Joyner, although I have my lodge background, this is just, a fake background, but Brother Joyner is such a dedicated Mason. He has steward staffs in his bedroom. So just he is so gung ho. That's pretty awesome.
Cool.
All right. I want to thank everybody for coming today. If you have the means to join us in person in May, we'd love to see it. Next week, and I need to get working on lining up speakers because I don't have that many lined up now. We have Carson Smith will give his talk on the history of the Knight Templar apron. That'll be next Saturday the 10th at 10 a.m. And I will say he likes giving that talk. I keep getting invited. Apparently he gives it quite often, but I think we still have an audience here that has not heard it, but I'd be interested in hearing that. We had to reschedule him from March. So he'll be here on the 10th. I still have openings. If any of you are interested in being a speaker at one of these meetings, please contact me and let me know. I love to give this opportunity, especially if you are interested in being a speaker and you want to get into it, you haven't had the chance. This is the perfect opportunity. to practice, if you will, on a Zoom meeting. I think there's less pressure than there is standing up in lodge. So I would like to encourage any up and coming lecturer who wants a chance to try out a paper that we'd love to give you an opportunity. We do have. So I lost my train of thought. We do try to have different speakers every week on various topics. I was going to ask this group. Most of you are semi-regulars here. We had the Masonic Mania back in February. We didn't have a big turnout. It may have just been the weekend or whatever it was. But Masonic Mania was what I was labeling where basically I have several questions and I just basically make every one of you a member of the panel and just go around the room and ask general questions about Masonry in your area, personal experiences, whatever. And I was wondering if people would be receptive to doing that possibly in April, since I have several weeks open. What do you all think? Would everyone here be interested in participating in another one of those? Yes, no, maybe, thumbs up. Okay. Or you hate the idea, let me know. Here's the interesting thing I'll share with you all is I try to have different, I'm going to mute a few of y'all here. I'm getting feedback, sorry. Feel free to unmute if you want to comment. I try to have different things here at these unstateds. We do have a speaker like we had today. This is the typical format, of course, but I want to try a lot of different things and see what works because we have such an open format. We can pretty much do whatever we want. We can do things we don't normally do in the lodge room, like having panel discussions. So I like the idea of having brothers from different countries, like we did Scotland last week, and that was a lot of fun, and I'll line up another one soon. I want to do some of the more obscure, the smaller countries, and do some of the Eastern European countries and all that, and have the community explain about Bulgaria and Czechoslovakia and other countries that don't exist anymore, like Czechoslovakia. I know it from growing up, sorry. But I want to have like different brothers from different Grand Lodges come in and we interview them about things Masonry in their corner of the world. But I want to just try different things out. So if you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see us try, if we do something and you don't like it, let me know. Or if you did like it, want to do it again, please let me know. I need feedback from you all. I'm trying to build something here, and it's sort of like I'm just trying all kinds of different varieties, so it's not just the same old meeting. I'm still doing one every Saturday as long as I'm able to, until I start running out of topics or people get tired of attending, or my wife starts booking me on Saturdays to do other things as it gets nicer out there. So for the time, we're going to keep meeting every week, except for May 15th, of course, we will be meeting in person. And if you can join us, please join us. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. And we'll see you all next week. Y'all take care.